Have you been struggling with trying to figure out who's the best professional to work with you when it comes to your accounting or tax-based needs? Maybe trying to find the best person to work with you when it comes to your business needs. Whatever the case is, let's talk about who you should be working with and why. The professional that you're going to be working with is really going to be based on the services that you need. So when it comes to accounting or tax-based services, there are different professionals that you will need to work with. You have CFOs, you have controllers, you have bookkeepers, tax preparers, tax strategists, tax resolution specialists. All of these are different services that you can take on, and there are different people that provide the service. So just because someone is an accountant or just because someone is a tax preparer or a tax professional does not mean that they do all of these services. Talk about tax strategy or tax planning, as some of you may know it. So tax planning is really when you bring in someone who's going to help you reduce your tax liabilities so that you don't have to pay as much in taxes, and they do so legally. So there are many, many ways that you can save money on your taxes, and you want to make sure that you're working with someone who specializes in tax strategy if that's what you're looking for. Now, your tax preparer or your bookkeeper that you're working with may not even do tax strategy. That may not be their primary thing. And you specifically want to try to find a tax strategist, because if they're doing tax strategy all year, they're going to be up to speed on the laws, on any law changes, and how that impacts your bottom line. So let me give you an example. Because we do tax strategy all year, when we are talking to clients, we are trying to give them the best possible estimate on what their tax savings will be based on the strategies that we recommend. We spend the bulk of the year learning about strategies, talking to different strategists that assist us with putting these different things in place. We make sure that we understand the tax laws and how that can affect the tax savings, because there are phase outs and different things related to the tax law that if there are adjustments in those things, it will also impact the savings. When you're working with someone who is a specialist, these are the things that they do. They look at different tax laws. How does that affect their clients? How will that affect the strategies? And it helps them to get a better understanding as to whether or not they need to make adjustments to the strategies to get a bigger overall tax savings because of things that are changing in the tax code from year to year. And do keep in mind that every year, tax code changes. Now let's talk about tax resolution. So tax resolution specialist is going to be someone who specializes in helping people eliminate tax debts. So when you think about tax debts, this is people who owe the IRS. Some of them owe a state, some of them owe both, and they are trying to resolve that debt, right? They might need to get into some sort of payment plan. They might want to do what a lot of people call fresh start, but there is no fresh start program. It really is an offer and compromise that they're looking at. There are different options that you can look into. You want to look for a tax resolution specialist if you owe a lot of money to the IRS. Now, why would you look for a tax resolution specialist? Well, a tax resolution specialist also understands what can and can't be done. They also understand when you should and shouldn't touch certain returns. Based on what they're doing, they can actually extend what's called a CSED date. So what's a CSED date? It's your expiration date. What's an expiration date? All the taxes that you owe to the IRS have an expiration date. So the IRS is only allowed to collect from you for a period of 10 years. However, if that tax specialist does certain things, it can extend the expiration date. You want that expiration date to expire within 10 years. Well, all of that depends on what you do, the professional that you hire, what they do, what can and can't be done in terms of, can you get an offer and compromise? Can you get a payment plan that works for you? What a payment plan looks like? There are so many different things that they can look at, but it all is going to be driven on the person that you work with and whether or not they are knowledgeable in the things that they need to do to get those balances low or wiped out. So if you aren't sure, then you want to look for someone who is a tax resolution specialist. They specialize in resolution. This is something they do year round. They are paying attention to the tax laws, the tax codes, any changes. They are paying attention to what's going to be happening in relation to resolution. And if there are any changes that impact someone's ability to pay back. They want to pay attention to the IRS. Like we have been hearing that there's going to be a lot of layoffs. Now, understand, a lot of layoffs doesn't mean the IRS is going away. The IRS is not going away. It does mean that things will move slower. So is that good or bad for a client? It can be bad for some clients if they have to respond by a certain time. And if they're trying to work with the IRS and the IRS is slow and they're not responding, or they're saying they don't receive stuff, which happens a lot, it could put a client in a really vulnerable situation. So you want to make sure that you're working with someone who is a resolution specialist. Now, in all of these cases, you want to make sure that you understand the background of these individuals, if they went to school, what type sort of education background they have, if they've studied and practiced, how long they've studied and practiced, how long that they've worked under someone else, how long they have been doing this. If you can get referrals, you want to get referrals, but you want to make sure that you are choosing the right specialist for this specific need that's out there. And by doing that, that's going to help you to work with the professional that best suits your needs. Now, why would somebody want to work with a specific specialist as compared to someone who's a generalist and they do multiple things? I like to give an example like this. If you needed to go and have brain surgery, would you want to have brain surgery from a dentist? They're both doctors. You might say, well, that's really far-fetched. Okay, if you were to get brain surgery, would you want to have it from someone who specializes in brain surgery, or would you want to use someone who specializes in general surgery? So they do surgeries, but they don't always work on the brain. I would want to work with someone who works on the brain. Why would you want to work with someone who works on the brain? Because if they're doing that all year long and all the time, there are just certain information that they are going to know. They are going to know how to be more careful around the brain, what things could cause a bigger or more traumatic impact to their patient. There are just so many things that they're going to be more well aware of, and they're going to do, in a lot of cases, they're going to do a better job because they specialize in a particular area. It's the same when it comes to accounting and tax services. Accounting and tax is a broad spectrum of services. When you narrow that down, you will see there are specific services within that spectrum of services. And so you want to try to find someone who is a specialist in the areas that you need, because they can create a bigger, more impactful and better outcome for you because they specialize in that area. So they study that area all year long. They take classes, they go to seminars on that area. They do different trainings on that area. They are constantly learning and getting better in that particular area compared to somebody who is doing this generally. Like I do a bunch of things. So I would much rather go to somebody who specializes in the area, in a particular area, because they're going to be more knowledgeable than somebody who is not. And I would tell you from our experience, we specifically focus on resolution and strategy. And so throughout the year, that's where we spend our time studying, working with professionals in those spaces, learning what else is new out there for our clients, and bringing all that information to our clients and sharing that with them all year long. And so that's how we end up getting some of the big outcomes that you hear for our clients. It's because that's where we spend our time and that's where we study as enrolled agents. So we are a firm of enrolled agents. And that is why I would tell you that if you are looking for something like strategy or resolution services, reach out to us. We will be happy to help. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today in today's lesson, and I will see you in the next lesson.